Imagine you and your best friend, right? You're walking through a park after a summer storm.
Ah, I love that post-storm weather.
Yeah, exactly. It's perfect.
Yeah.
And the sun breaks through the clouds, and you both stop, you point at the sky, and you admire this massive, just brilliant rainbow.
Right.
It feels like it's a perfectly shared experience, right?
Mm.
You're standing shoulder to shoulder, looking at the exact same beautiful object.
Mm.
But according to the laws of physics, that shared experience is actually a complete illusion.
It's entirely an illusion.
You are literally looking at two entirely different rainbows.
I mean, it sounds absurd when you first hear it, to be honest. But from a strictly physical and mathematical perspective, the idea that no two people inhabit the same reality isn't just like poetry.
Right.
It is a literal, observable phenomenon. And honestly, it serves as the foundation for the text we are examining today.
Which brings us to our mission for this deep dive. We are exploring the writings of Rabbi Shlomo Ezagui, specifically this fascinating piece that attempts to synthesize modern physics, the neuroscience of perception, and classical Jewish thought.
It's quite the ambitious crossover.
It really is, especially if you are new to the intersection of Torah and physics. And the source material basically argues that the phrase, create your own reality.
Which usually sounds like motivational poster fluff.
Exactly, like something you'd see on a coffee mug. But it argues that it's actually a structural feature of the universe. So if you have ever felt trapped by your circumstances or just overwhelmed by external limits, the arguments presented here are really designed to completely reframe how you view your own agency.
Yeah, it's incredibly empowering once you wrap your head around it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand how this source claims you can shape your reality, we first have to, shatter that park bench assumption. We have to look at the actual mechanics of how you physically receive data from the universe.
So the best place to start is with the basic grid of reality.
Right, the XYZ stuff.
Exactly. In physics, every single observation, every interaction with the universe depends on the observer's position in space-time. We define an event using coordinates. So you have X, Y, and Z for the three physical dimensions.
Up, down, left, right, forward, back.
Right. And then T for time. And by definition, two physical bodies cannot occupy the exact same molecular space at the exact same second.
Because they would just crash into each other.
Right, they would collide. So because you are forced to occupy a unique coordinate, you are necessarily receiving a slightly different stream of data from the environment than literally anyone else on the planet.
Okay, I have to jump in here and push back a little on the practical application of this.
Sure, go for it.
Let's say I'm sitting on the couch right next to someone, and we are both looking at a television screen just 10 feet away. Are these infinitesimal differences in coordinates actually meaningful to my daily life?
It feels like splitting hairs, doesn't it?
Yeah. It feels a bit like splitting microscopic hairs just to make a cool philosophical point.
That is a very fair critique. I mean, our brains are heavily incentivized to smooth over those differences so we can function in society, right?
Yeah.
If we constantly obsessed over the molecular differences in our vision, we couldn't even cross the street safely.
We'd be completely paralyzed.
Exactly. But what's fascinating here is that mathematically, those tiny discrepancies prove a massive conceptual point. The universe does not broadcast a static picture for a shared audience.
It's not a movie theater playing the same reel for everyone.
Not at all. It delivers a uniquely tailored set of data to every single person based on their exact position. And the physics of that rainbow you mentioned earlier illustrates the mechanics of this perfectly.
Yes. The rainbow example from the text is incredibly vivid. It essentially asks us to stop thinking of a rainbow as a physical object hanging in the sky. Like a cloud or a bird.
Because it's exactly the opposite of an object, in fact. A rainbow is purely an optical phenomenon. It relies entirely on light from the sun entering water droplets suspended in the air. When the light hits the water, it slows down, it bends, and it reflects off the back of the droplet.
Okay, so far so good.
Right, but for you to actually perceive the red band of the rainbow, that specific refraction process has to direct the light into your eye at an angle of approximately 42 degrees.
And the 42-degree angle is the critical detail here, because that angle is relative to your specific eye at your specific X, Y, Z, and T coordinates.
Yes, consider the geometry involved. Because you are standing in your unique spot, you are interacting with a very specific localized collection of water droplets. And those droplets happen to be bouncing light at that exact 42-degree angle toward your retina.
Okay, so what if my friend is standing right next to me?
Well, if your friend is standing even just 3 feet to your left, the geometry completely shifts. They cannot physically receive the light from your water droplets at that angle.
Wow.
They are interacting with a completely different set of droplets miles away in the sky to get their own 42-degree angle.
Meaning the universe is rendering a completely custom rainbow just for them.
Exactly.
And if I take 10 steps forward, my 42-degree angle shifts, and my rainbow literally moves with me. I am an active participant in the existence of that specific rainbow.
Yes. The physics guarantees that the raw light hitting your face is entirely unique to your coordinates. But that is only the first half of the equation.
Right, the external part.
Right, because what happens the millisecond that unique light actually enters your body, that is where our biology takes over and aggressively customizes the data even further.
Let's follow that light inside. It hits the eye, specifically the retina, which is lined with millions of photoreceptor cells called rods and cones. Rods process low light, cones process color.
And the source material points out that the biological distribution of those cells is not uniform across the human species. The density and sensitivity of your cones vary significantly from the person sitting right next to you.
So even the physical hardware is uniquely calibrated.
Exactly. But the real heavy lifting happens after those cells convert the light into electrical signals and send them up the optic nerve. The human brain is not a passive monitor displaying a live, objective feed of the outside world.
No, not at all.
It is a highly active, highly biased construction engine.
So how does that construction engine actually work? Because the text relies heavily on this idea that our past basically dictates our present reality.
Well, it comes down to the mechanics of neuroplasticity and cognitive framing. In neuroscience, there is a principle often summarized as neurons that fire together, wire together.
Right, I've heard that.
Every experience you have ever had, every trauma, every joy, every mundane Tuesday, physically alters the synaptic connections in your brain.
That's wild to think about.
It is. So when a new electrical signal comes in from your optic nerve, your brain doesn't just present it to you raw, it routes that signal through your hippocampus, which handles memory, and your amygdala, which processes emotion.
So what does this all mean for us? It's basically like our brain is this overzealous, highly opinionated movie director.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, it takes the raw, unique footage that our individual eyes capture, and then it aggressively edits it. It consults our past experiences. It adds a tense, dramatic musical score if the amygdala senses a threat.
Color corrects the footage to look brighter if the hippocampus recalls a happy memory.
Exactly. And it cuts out background details it deems irrelevant. And then, only after all that aggressive editing, it projects the final movie for us to watch and says, here is reality.
Which is often very far from objective reality.
Oh, totally. I know for a fact my brain poorly edits my memories. Like, I still remember an awkward high school interaction as a cinematic disaster of epic proportions, whereas the other person probably didn't even notice.
That movie director analogy captures the mechanism perfectly, though. If someone has a severe phobia of dogs and a golden retriever walks into the room, their amygdala floods their system with cortisol.
Right, their whole body reacts.
Yes. Their physical field of vision can actually narrow a biological response called tunnel vision, and their brain hyper-focuses on the animal's teeth. They literally perceive a larger, faster, more dangerous creature.
Wow.
But a dog lover in the exact same room, receiving the exact same photons of light, gets a hit of dopamine and perceives a friendly, soft animal. Science demonstrates that reality is actively shaped and constructed within the individual's neural pathways.
Okay, so physics ensures we receive custom data, and neuroscience ensures our brains build a custom-edited movie from that data. If science shows our internal wiring dictates our reality, Rabbi Ezagui argues that ancient Jewish texts have actually been describing this exact individualized architecture for centuries.
Yes, just using the language of the soul rather than the language of synapses.
Right. And the synthesis he presents relies heavily on Chassidic, which is a branch of Jewish mystical thought. Chassidic philosophy posits that every single soul has a unique, irreplaceable divine mission, referred to as a shlishat.
Right. And to accomplish this mission, the text argues that an individual must be provided with a completely customized interface with the universe.
The source material uses a really striking metaphor for this, describing each person as having their own pipeline of divine sustenance. It compares it to the hair on your head.
Oh, the hair follicle analogy, yes.
Yeah, how every single individual hair grows from its own separate, distinct follicle. You do not share a spiritual coordinate or a source of reality with anyone else.
And this concept isn't just abstract mysticism, which is what I love about this text. It points out that this is structurally embedded into halacha, or Jewish law.
Oh yeah, the legal side of this is fascinating.
It really is. The rules that govern daily Jewish life actively codify the idea that reality is individually constructed. A primary example presented by Rabbi Ezagui involves the observance of the Sabbath, or Shabbat.
Let's walk through the mechanics of that, because the legal implications really illustrate the point.
Okay, so according to the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, it is entirely legally permissible for two people to occupy the exact same physical space, but operate in two distinct halakhic realities.
How does that work practically?
Well, imagine a Friday afternoon. Two roommates are sitting in the same living room. One roommate decides to accept the sanctity of Shabbat early. The moment they make that internal, intentional commitment, they are legally bound by the restrictions of the holy day.
Right, so they can't strike a match, they can't engage in commerce.
Exactly. Their reality has structurally shifted into a dimension of rest.
While the roommate sitting 3 feet away on the same couch hasn't accepted Shabbat yet, they are still operating in the standard weekday reality, freely going about their business.
Precisely. And Orach Chaim 263.17 in the Code of Jewish Law explicitly permits them to interact under specific conditions, legally acknowledging that their lived realities do not overlap, despite their physical coordinates being nearly identical.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When the text argues that these two people are sitting on the same couch, but existing in different dimensions, it begs a massive question. If inner intention overrides shared space, is the source material suggesting that the external world, like the physical couch, the walls of the room, the bills on the table, is just an illusion?
Like the Matrix or something?
Yeah. Does the physical world not actually matter in this framework?
That's a great question. The author is careful to clarify that the Torah does not view the physical world as an illusion. The physical constraints are treated as very real.
Okay, good. So no walking through walls.
Right. If there is a brick wall in front of you, you cannot walk through it. External laws, gravity, societal oppression, these are tangible boundaries. The core argument is not that external constraints are fake, but rather that external constraints do not have the final authority to determine your destiny or your internal experience.
So the external world is real, but it isn't the ultimate author of your story.
Exactly. Consider the historical example the text brings up regarding the great sage Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. During the 2nd century CE, the Roman Empire viciously outlawed the study of Torah and executed prominent Jewish scholars.
So the external reality was one of absolute oppression and catastrophic danger.
Very much so. Rabbi Shimon was forced to flee and hide in a small, desolate cave for 13 years, surviving on just a carob tree and a well of water.
By any objective external metric, his reality was a nightmare of isolation and deprivation.
Yet the tradition teaches that during those 13 years in the cave, he and his son reached the absolute pinnacle of spiritual revelation. They eventually brought down the teachings that would form the Zohar, the foundational work of Jewish mysticism.
Wow.
The Roman persecution was a real physical constraint, but it did not dictate his internal coordinate. His inner reality was so elevated and expansive that the external limitations essentially lost their grip on his lived experience.
So how do we actually use this custom architecture when the external world throws a brick through our personal movie screen? Because the ultimate goal of Rabbi Ezagui's synthesis is practical application.
Right. It has to be useful today.
Exactly. How does a person leverage this intersection of physics and Torah to overcome hardship right now?
The source material suggests it begins with a radical reinterpretation of your circumstances based on that unique pipeline concept. If you draw your sustenance from a completely distinct spiritual follicle, it mathematically eliminates the concept of competition in the truest sense.
Wait, really? How so?
Because someone else's success or their failure has absolutely no bearing on your pipeline. A locked door in your colleague's reality might not even exist in your dimensional space.
But what about when we hit our own locked doors?
Yeah.
Let's say two people are working at the same company and they both get laid off on the exact same Tuesday.
It happens all the time.
Right. The external obstacle is identical. The financial threat is identical.
But we see the divergence in outcomes constantly. One person processes the layoff through a framework of victimization. Their amygdala triggers panic, their cognitive framing narrows to see only threat, and they become stagnant and bitter.
Which is a completely understandable human reaction, to be fair.
Of course. But the other person processes the exact same layoff as a necessary catalyst to pivot into a new industry they've always been passionate about. The physical situation is identical, but the internal framework dictates an entirely different trajectory.
And Rabbi Ezagui's piece argues that the different disciplines we've discussed today just use different vocabulary for this exact same phenomenon.
Yes. The text draws parallels across multiple fields. In neuroscience, it is cognitive framing altering behavior. The author even touches on quantum mechanics, specifically the observer effect.
Oh, right, where the act of measuring a particle forces it to collapse into a defined reality.
Exactly. And in the Torah's framework, this power to define reality is articulated through the concepts of emuna, which translates to faith, Bitachon, which is active, unwavering trust, and the defining feature of the human condition, which is Bechira Chofshit, or free will.
So if you are listening to this right now and you are feeling hopelessly stuck in your life, whether you are trapped in a stagnant career, a difficult relationship, or just spiraling in your own anxiety,
Yeah.
the synthesis here offers a profound paradigm shift.
It really does.
You aren't actually trapped by the immutable obstacles around you. You are just looking at a highly specific rainbow from a highly specific coordinate, heavily filtered by your past experiences.
Yes.
The text argues that by using your free will to shift your internal perspective by leaning into Bitachon, that active trust that the universe is guiding you toward a necessary outcome, you are literally moving to a new coordinate.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the profound takeaway from the source material is that influence does not solely run from the outside in. We are conditioned to believe the external world acts upon us, and we simply react.
It feels that way most of the time.
It does. But this synthesis of science and spirituality argues that influence runs powerfully from the inside out. Developing your internal clarity, refusing to let past trauma entirely dictate your cognitive framing, and placing active trust in a higher purpose literally shapes what possibilities are allowed to emerge in your physical space.
Like the walls start coming down.
Exactly. As your internal framework solidifies, those external locked doors start to lose their structural integrity.
It flips the script entirely. According to this deep dive, you are not a passive observer sitting in the back row of a theater watching your life happen to you. Both the hard sciences regarding how your brain processes light and the ancient mystical texts regarding how your soul processes reality point to the same conclusion.
You're the director.
You are the director. Your reality is profoundly personal, and your internal choices construct your external experience.
And, the text leaves us with a striking thought from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem M. Schneerson.
Oh, I love this part.
He taught that living a messianic reality, which in Jewish thought is an era of ultimate goodness, justice, and clarity, does not mean waiting passively for global politics or the external world to magically fix itself.
Right, you don't just sit around.
Right. It begins entirely within one's own cognitive and spiritual framing. You view the world through that elevated lens right now. And because each individual's customized reality is essentially an entire universe unto itself, when you shift your internal coordinate, you add tangible, literal weight to shaping the destiny of the broader world.
The limits you perceive around you right now are not absolute objective walls. They're just the 42-degree angle of the rainbow you happen to be standing in front of. How you choose to interpret the light, how you edit the footage, and where you choose to step next is entirely in your hands.
This raises an important question, something for you to ponder as you navigate your own highly customized reality today.
Yeah, think about this as you go about your day.
If physics, neuroscience, and mystical traditions all point to the idea that our individual internal choices literally construct the world we experience, what happens to the very fabric of the universe when a community of individuals consciously chooses to align their internal realities toward a shared elevated purpose? Does the shared reality we thought was a physical impossibility suddenly become a new world that we actively co-create together?